It's about models, chips, and apps. But I asked the all-knowing AI itself the same question and invited it to analyze the relationships among the different spaces of the AI landscape. And I got a new satellite view of the place. Today is July 28th, and this is the Daily AI Show. At the moment, I'm joined by Junmi Hatcher, and shortly, Brian Mosseri will be here. So, this is the subject for today. I wanted to take a big, broad view of the AI space and see how it parses out. And I'm going to share that with you with an analysis that was done by some agents that spent a lot of inference time on this particular problem. Starting with the process of first scouring in order to present an exhaustive list of the individual topic areas that are a part of it. And so I'm going to share my screen and show you what is the sort of the end result of that. It started out by identifying 15 different domains, knowledge domains that are relevant to AI. And I think it's fairly exhaustive, although there will be some things that you might consider would be elevated to that same level of knowledge domain in AI. And I then challenged it to organize those 15 into related spaces with using semantic similarity and also concept similarity. And what came out of that are 5 clusters. So we can actually get it down to one hand and understand the whole AI space in those 5 different clusters. All right, so here we go. I'm going to share my screen and we'll kick it off with an exploration of the landscape of AI. Here we start out with the domain taxonomy with its relative importance and relationships. Now, this is a spaghetti chart, and it's going to get a lot clearer just very shortly. So let me just say, this is what the mind map approach is to these 5 clusters. The circles you see are the 15 domains. So AI benchmarking and evaluation is a knowledge area. It's a domain. It's an area of study that happens in AI education and research. But this is a specific core understanding or technique that needs to be applied to AI in this core technical foundation. And there's a hierarchy here that's represented in this diagram as well. These ones up here, these two, particularly the AI subfields or the core technical foundation and the implementation and application areas, those are the heaviest weight. They have the largest circles in this diagram. And if you just studied these 2 areas, this would be really the core of what you need to understand about AI. But there are these other things that are adjacent and important equally. And we talk about all of these things on the Daily AI Show. So let me just point out that this is all color coded as we go through it. This blue is the core technical foundation. The green is the implementation and application space. This area over on the right in purple is knowledge and innovation, which includes the whole academic space for AI pursuit and research. It also includes the open source AI movement, which is an area of innovation and possible implication for the market and the future, which is this yellow space down here. And there's also the societal context, ethics, governance, and society, all the impacts on society. All right. So here's the taxonomy itself. And I had GenSpark, which is what you're looking at right now, organize this accordion presentation into the 5 domains, or these are the 5 clusters, so to speak. But within those clusters and organizing those clusters is the importance and weight of each of these in the space of AI as measured by the number of instances and the importance of its presentation in thousands and thousands of documents that were reviewed by GenSpark in arriving at this structure. So here we have the 10 AI I'm sorry, this number on the left that you see here, this is its relative weight in this scheme of the 5 clusters and the 15 topical areas or knowledge domains that are a part of it. The most important one is AI subfields and core techniques. So if I click on this, it'll tell me what that's all about. Okay, the foundational technical approaches and methodologies that define artificial intelligence as a discipline. This domain represents the fundamental algorithms, theories, and paradigms that power all AI applications. So, not surprising that this is the most important and heaviest weighted of all the 15 domains. The subtopics within are machine learning. We've talked about supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and now reinforcement learning, which allows models to teach themselves, in effect. There's the concepts within deep learning, neural networks, convolutional neural networks, recurrent neural networks, and transformers, natural language processing, computer vision, robotics, knowledge representation and reasoning, search and planning algorithms. Okay, all of those, each one of those would be deep enough for us to do a full show or maybe 10 shows on any one of these things. And we've dipped our toes into those as we navigate week by week across the landscape. But this one kind of pulls it all together. So and this accordion navigation of the taxonomy of AI, which I will publish. This is a actually coded, little interactive navigator. We'll publish that to our community so that you can play with it yourself. Now, the other domains that have the most direct relationship with the top one, which is AI subfields and core techniques, are data-centric AI, which is right within that same core technical foundation. And then below it, AI applications, which is down here, as you see at the bottom, but in the next cluster. But also AI education and research has a strong relationship to this because it informs the laboratories in academia inform alongside the private equity backed companies. It informs the cutting edge of AI development. And also there's a strong relationship with AI benchmarking and evaluation. Okay, what is data-centric AI? The second piece of that. So let's close this one and open up data-centric AI. This one will make
Andy, yeah. I'm sorry, really quick. Do you mind just scrolling up just a hair? Because I want to follow along. I want everybody to follow along with you. What is the out of the 5? I think you were calling them clusters. What cluster are we in currently?
This is core technical foundation.
Okay, core technical foundation is one of the 5 clusters.
That's right. Core technical foundation is this one up here.
Gotcha.
And then you have knowledge and innovation. But the second one that we're going to review is going to be implementations and applications of this core technique. And then there's also some areas, market and future and societal context.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Good. No, thanks for the question, because that's what we need to do. We need to understand in our own cognitive map how these relate to each other. And we're still just in the top one, which is the core technical foundation. And this is the science. This is the science and development space of AI. Data-centric, it focuses on the critical role of data. As we know, AI, as we understand it today, is the product of enormous amounts of data, trillions and trillions of data points in the form of text and other things, code and images, etc., that have been taught into the knowledge structures of AI deep neural networks. So data is really fundamental to this whole thing. And here are the major subtopics: data collection and curation. Curation is very important because you don't want to feed a lot of bogus data into the model, because it's going to see that data and kind of weight it equally with other data unless you prune that data away. But then the question of bias has to be addressed. Do I in the process of curating that data, do I end up inadvertently introducing bias that was unintended? Data annotation and labeling. This is in order to provide knowledge graph capability within this. So labeling them and assigning that this data is about this subject is one of the things that the people who are focused on data-centric AI really think about. And increasingly, because we've hoovered up everything that we can from the internet, synthetic data generation is an important one. And then data quality and governance, feature engineering, data privacy and ownership, and big data technologies. And then down here, you see the strong relationships, the key relationships to this space. I'm not going to go through everything in this entire thing, but I am going to go, if you'll indulge me, just into the AI application space. Let's skip AI benchmarking and evaluation and jump down to these 8 power weighted to, this is AI applications and AI infrastructure and tools. These are ones that'll be familiar to you. All right, quickly, AI applications. We have the AI applications by industry sector, and we also organize it by functional use case. So by sector, we've got healthcare, finance, manufacturing, supply chain, retail and e-commerce, and transportation and automotive. And these are the main areas of application development, setting aside the consumer application space, which is primarily here down by functional use case, focused on conversational AI and virtual assistants. I think the predominant consumer application that we're discovering now is as an assistant companion, even using that companion as a sounding board, as a dialogue partner, in order to prepare or understand better your own sort of mental space in the context of AI as a not a licensed therapist, but as a supportive therapist in explorations that you might want to pursue. And also, consumers are doing a lot with vision and image, and video and audio are also a part of that. So this is the space that the consumer sits in. But in terms of industry applications, which is really where the rubber meets the road when it comes to monetization of this AI space, this is the structure of that one. All right. So finally, the last one that I'm going to talk about in this sort of wonky way is the chips part of it, right? The chips and the infrastructure part of it, the energy question, resource management, like how do I manage compute resources against the constraint of energy available to do it. So I have to become more efficient, not only in parsing out my time of inference by throttling users' access to it, but also by making my models and my core infrastructure of it more efficient so that the energy that's available is enough, it's accessible to the demand that's out there for all of these applications. AI hardware, we talk about NVIDIA and all the other players who are building the inference engines, the deep learning frameworks that are a part of the software space of it, as are the machine learning libraries and APIs, ML ops and deployment as a methodology that leans on cloud AI services. You've got now the whole vibe coding world in development tools and in integrated development environments, IDEs, and compute resource management, which I touched on before. Okay, so I hope you've taken notes because there's going to be a quiz at the end of this, but I wanted to just give you that picture of it and arrive at a conclusion. And it basically says, hey, AI is not a monolithic entity. It's an interconnected ecosystem of domains spanning technical foundations, implementation approaches, knowledge systems, societal context, and market dynamics. All right.
So real quick, Andy, before you leave GenSpark here, Gareth is asking in the comments, and I think we have some other people maybe have joined a little bit late. I missed your intro as well. Just really quick, you obviously have built two things. Number one, you built this in GenSpark, and before you give your explanation of it, I do want to reiterate what you just said, Andy, which is that you're going to make this available to our community. So if you want to be able to drill down and look at these individual sections, which I highly recommend, clearly what you put together here, Andy, is really, really valuable. Then number one, you need to be part of our community. So this is a good reminder to go to the dailyishowcommunity.com and sign up for our free Slack community, because that's where this is what we do, right? If we talk about it on the show and there's a resource that we create or resources that we found really helpful, that's our sort of one-stop shop outside of like maybe sharing it in a newsletter, where you're going to be able to go find these tools and resources. So it's free. Go to the dailyishowcommunity.com and you can sign up right now to be part of that community. And that's where you'll be able to find this interactive dashboard, for lack of a better term. But Andy, can you just kind of give a high level real quick for anybody that might have joined us a few minutes after?
So what I asked the agent to do, and it spent quite a bit of time. I'd say altogether, there was probably 30 or 40 minutes worth of compute and preparation time that GenSpark, the agent system that I'm using here, built. And its first step was to go out and scour up everything related to AI and organize that into these knowledge domains. But when it presented those knowledge domains, they weren't in any particular order. So I said, look, I want you to look at semantic similarity and interrelationships among these different domains, and then organize them better in a kind of semantic mind map, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I showed up here originally, right? This was the way it did it. It said, okay, of these 15, I'm going to organize them into these 5 clusters. And one of those clusters is the core technical foundation of AI. And the other cluster that we discussed was implementation and application. But there's also the markets and the future for this. Like, what are the investment markets saying about this? And sometimes we say, let's follow the money. Where's the money going in the world of AI? Well, that's in this knowledge cluster, which is the markets in the future, because those investments are being made against the possibility of some future development that is going to inform not the AI that we see on the landscape today, but what's going to be happening 5 and even 10 years from now. Quantum computing would be a part of that future that is ultimately applicable to AI. And then we have knowledge and innovation, which is the academic space around this, but also the study of history of AI. And there's some interesting things. If you drill down into the history of AI, you can kind of get a map of, okay, where could I explore this? And by the way, this particular navigator doesn't have the full drill down capabilities that GenSpark could easily, I shouldn't say easily, because it's going to have to expand on all of the different elements in there. But so there's nothing below each one, but it gives you a cue to what you might study if you're interested in the history of AI. And it says, well, let's go down and just see that as an example. So if I use the navigator and I go here into knowledge and innovation and AI history and evolution, so there's going to be the early foundations in the 50s and 60s. The Dartmouth Conference is the place where the word artificial intelligence was first used in the late 1950s. So this is the way that you could kind of understand that there is a structure. This is what's interesting about this whole exercise, is that the map, the guide map of all of this in the world of AI is actually built upon the underlying knowledge that was collected by the agent and is represented in the models. So it's not like it's just hallucinating these things. There is actually substance below each one of these subtopics that you see.
Andy, I got a quick question for you. We can see that there's categorization, and then how many points of connection under each of these categorization, but that doesn't imply importance, right? There isn't a priority level or anything like that.
Well, this number on the left is a relative importance. Like, you see, the title of the whole thing is relative importance and relationships. Now, I don't have any scientific proof that the relative importance that was assessed by GenSpark in this exercise I didn't have time to go back and examine its
Sure.
thinking, but its thinking is presented. So I can't tell you what it used to determine what the relative importance was, but in my prompt, I asked it to consider how frequently it's mentioned and in what authoritative sources it was
Right.
mentioned. So that's what gives AI subfields and core techniques the highest relative importance score, 10, in this. And then these um, connectors here, there's actually, you can see some of the connectors are very light and some of them are darker. So there's a
Mhm.
strong connector between AI subfields and core techniques and data-centric AI. That's the strongest relationship because in order to implement AI tools, you've got to have the data. So those are connected. And that's, so this map, as kind of jangly as it is, actually does represent relative importance and relationships and with their weights, size of the circles being the strong indicator of its importance in this landscape, and the connectors saying these are the ones that are most important relations to the one that, like, for example, human AI collaboration is connected to interdisciplinary AI. And to understand that, we'd have to just go down here and drill into those and see what they mean by that.
And what I like about this, Andy, is that you could easily take this as a jumping off point because, well, just by the term relative, really depends on who's viewing it, right? So this relative order makes sense for here. But let's just take a couple of different job titles. Let's say, well, let's take a job title as in a student. You're a professional student, meaning you go to college or something like that. Your relative, the importance of this information might shift or adjust in space if we were to look at it at a 3D or even 4D and try to imagine it in this multi-dimensional type space. Those circles would expand and contract and move apart and move closer depending on what that person was trying to learn. Now, if I'm in digital asset management, and my role as a dam for short, but digital asset management, and my role is to organize and see that all of my companies or all of my agencies data is categorized in a way that AI can make sense of it, and so on and so forth. Well, then we can see by doing these drill downs here where that would sort of fall in a line. And I could imagine that you could quickly have a jumping off point. If, again, go to the Slack community and look at this when we put it up or Andy puts it up, but that you could use this as a jumping off point to say, well, if that's my role, readjust these based on the importance of how I need to understand AI based off of this taxonomy. And I imagine things will move around because now in my role, I'm much, much more reliant on governance in single sources of truth in quality like you have there, right? So like how are we taking care of the data? What is the big data? How is it being organized? Is it in vector databases? All these things that you want to know and grow from or whatever. And so, data centric AI may end up becoming like a larger space. So anyway, I just want to say, like, when you think relative, to me, what I think of is like, oh, this is a jumping off point to say, well, what is my role and what's important to me? And then once I understand that, how do I get this to sort of reorganize to say, well, this is how AI applies across these 5 clusters, essentially.
Yeah, good
Do you feel
point.
like
So
that's right? Or
this is the top level.
yeah,
So if I decided I want to make a profession, which is not a bad idea, of data centric AI, then and I don't even know if data centric AI a term of is it a term of art in the world of data? Maybe not. Maybe that you'll never find the expression data centric AI in a computer science curriculum, but it's at least a nice handle for us to understand this very important node in the whole landscape. And if I decided to become a data oriented or data centric expert, then I would drill into each one of these. And as I built my own knowledge management system around each of these, I at least have the top level guide of the spaces that I should explore. And it will be very likely, as an expert drilling into this, that I say, okay, you're missing one here. GenSpark, your 30 minutes didn't quite cut it. I have to add one.
Sure.
because this is an emerging area that's really important, or it's a facet of this data-centric AI space that is described here in this sentence that I need to add to it. And that's the whole knowledge exploration and knowledge management process that an expert would apply to a focus on one area of this space.
And can you talk a little bit about you've built a tool called Sensei, which also people can get access to in the like sort of the alpha version of it inside the community if they want to. So you've built essentially a taxonomy. Jude was saying in the comments, like he first said, well, this is like an encyclopedia of AI. I don't know that I would agree with encyclopedia because it's not all inclusive, right? It's not trying to be everything. It's
Right.
more about topics and stuff. And then he said taxonomy insinuates some type of order, which we sort of covered. And then he's saying, what's the practical use case for this? Professor, what's the practical use case for this info? And then he's like, okay, I think you just answered it. But what I wanted to say to Jude and anybody else who's like listening to this, so explain to us how you might take a taxonomy like this and apply it, and maybe just give a quick overview of what Sensei is, and maybe explain, and maybe here, let's come off, if you guys are cool with it, let's come off, because I'm sure people want to see our faces here for a second. But kind of, I don't know, Andy, kind of give us a high level of what you built for Sensei. And I mean, obviously from Jimmy and my background, we understand the importance of taxonomy, but now you've just shown how you use GenSpark and an agent to basically create this new taxonomy. So how do those two things connect?
Yeah, so in knowledge management, a taxonomy is just a description of the hierarchy of the subject areas and the topics and subtopics within it. And it doesn't necessarily have to have a relationship map. It can just be in some order that the person who's presenting that taxonomy chooses to present it. But it's intended to be the full sort of guide map to all of the topics in a subject area. And Sensei, the application that is a guided learning experience on any topic that you choose, it doesn't have that feature built into it yet. So
Right.
the first taxonomy that I applied to that Sensei model, and the way it's built is if you want to create a course, a guided learning experience for a certain exploration of an area of interest, you first ask the AIs to generate a taxonomy of that space, just as GenSpark did here for this. So if I wanted to do like a course on the overview of AI from A to Z, right? Mm-hmm. And the first step I would do is what I did here with GenSpark, and I create this taxonomy. Now that I have the taxonomy, I can give that taxonomy to that application Sensei. And Sensei then takes each one of these line items that's in here, and it will go and collect all the keywords and context that are relevant to that. And then through an automation process, it will generate a lesson about that subject. And then Sensei also has, as you are presented that subject in the taxonomy, which is an accordion navigation, just like this. The course is an accordion navigation through all of these things. When you open up a single lesson, which is just one page, you are also presented with an AI tutor on the side. So the whole idea is to interact with the tutor to explore areas that aren't completely understandable just from the simple one-page presentation. So it's a drill down process. Mm-hmm. Here's the highest level, the taxonomy. Now I have a line item in the taxonomy. It's called a node in the taxonomy. I have a knowledge node in the taxonomy. I want to drill down and see a lesson, a single page about that. And I'm going to read that. And if I have any questions, I'm going to ask the tutor about that. And that's what Sensei is. And it's related to this exploration here. But I decided, because, we on Mondays, we try to do something that is, just an easy discussion. I decided to just say, okay, well, let's take a 100,000 foot level view of AI and see what that looks like.
Yeah. Go ahead, Andy. Go ahead, Jimmy. Sorry.
So going back to what you were at output from GenSpark, the state of AI. Um, of all of those categories, we can see that there was, you know, the relative importance by just the interconnections, and went all through that. But was there any novel or particularly impactful insight from what was generated that surprised you when going through that process? Or maybe a category that was more interconnected or had greater importance than you expected?
Well, the one that I think didn't suddenly leap to mind was interdisciplinary AI. And I thought this was very interesting because it's the connections between AI and other fields of study, highlighting how AI both draws from and contributes to disciplines beyond computer science. And so this first one, AI, and there is some order in the subtopics as Jen Spark presented them. So the first one listed is going to be one that has more weight out there. Uh, AI and cognitive science, we're starting to understand that the deep neural networks, which were designed as a replication of the neural network that is our brain, right? Or a simulation of that. Um, we're starting to understand that we're able to learn from the behaviors of AI and its, in quotes, thinking process. We're able to understand some of the limitations and fantastic capabilities of our own human cognition, reasoning, and intellect. So that's an area of study that, you know, I don't know that we would, I don't know that we've ever done a show specifically on that, although we've kind of touched on things like that. But that kind of rose to my attention. We have talked about, you know, AI and biology, which, you know, we talk about Neuralink and the new stent-based interfaces, brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, that would fit into this area of interdisciplinary because it's really requiring AI and the medical community who's going to insert this thing into the biology of the human brain. Uh, so this is this space that I thought was kind of curious and interesting, the whole idea of interdisciplinary, because it covers lots of these things like physics. You know, when we start to talk about quantum computing isn't AI, but it is going to dramatically accelerate the potential of AI by applying a new and breakthrough kind of computational capability. And that's the connection to physics, because the, the, the ability of quantum computers to work wouldn't have happened without AI to support the developers of quantum computing. So there's this interdisciplinary approach to that sort of thing.
Right.
If Beth were here, we could talk at length about AI and arts and humanities, because
Right.
she brings a very unique perspective. And specifically, the one that's interesting is the improvisational, skills that happen in improv, and
Mhm.
how that really informs the best ways to interact with AI.
So what do you see as the I mean, this is a great breakdown of getting that high overview of everything. Um, what do you see the primary purpose? If you have access to this and you want to learn about AI and what the the status of these categories and subcategories are, is a jumping off tool like Brian was laying out, just to go learn about these subjects, or is a or did you have like a specific idea on how this could be implemented? Because I really like from earlier on, Brian, when you were talking about how to reorient this to your use case.
Yeah.
I think that's a strong adaptation, and this could be like a core module of that. So Andy, did you have any particular plans for that, or maybe even what an expectation of what people could get out of it?
Yeah. So our ability to recall things is based on association, and the relationships between one thing and another are really important. And the more associations you can build around the one thing that's a point of memory, the more recallable it is. And so for me, the creation of a cognitive map of the space is important so that I have a framework or an anchor around which to place things as I learn them. And before doing this exercise, I didn't have the 5 clusters, and I haven't memorized them yet, right? But is one of the things that you'll get out of playing with this is you'll start to understand that, oh, that, I had a conversation with Brian yesterday about this. Oh, that fits in societal context. Okay. So I have a way of, it's a mnemonic device for me. So I need this hall of memory that I can walk around, and I need some placeholders in there. And I wanted to know what those placeholders were, and I didn't want to depend on my own feeble structuring of the 500 plus shows we've done to output that. So I used an agent that has access to the world's information. And that's where this structure came out. And I'm not going to say this is the end all and be all structure. I might do this again with OpenAI's agent mode and see what it does. And does it come out with something different, or does it end up zeroing in on these? And that will be part of an area that's on this map, which is evaluation and benchmarking, right? So I haven't benchmarked this thing. I haven't evaluated it. One of the ways that I would do that is I'd say, okay, that's what GenSpark says the 5 major knowledge domains are in AI. What does OpenAI say? What does Claude say? And then I compare them. I might give all of that output to another agent and say, okay, Gemini, give us the final as integrated, across all of these outputs.
Which would be really, really strong when you think about it, because you're not relying on one model and maybe some weights or pre-training or unintended or otherwise bias within that model to think that one area is stronger, perhaps, or relative to one area. So I think that's a really cool, project, is to watch that grow and get cross-referenced and see what other models pick up and then go, oh, that's really interesting. That wasn't identified. What I really feel like this is all showing, Andy, from that, I think you said 10,000 or 100,000 foot view, is what we try to do a lot on this show is just talk about how AI is not some singular or even several dimensional thing that's going to touch and impact our lives. It really will touch everything. And then when you go, but I bet you it won't there, you go, I bet you it will. So like something where somebody might think like a religion is untouchable. And they say, I bet you AI wouldn't infiltrate a religion. And I go, it probably already has with sermons, and it probably already has infiltrated in one way or another through pure human intent to do it. It's not like it accidentally found itself there in all these different ways that we interact. And I love what you're showing is just that sit back and look at how all these things work together. And it really informs you when you have conversations with people, or I do when I see something like this. It informs me as somebody who talks as a consultant to so many other different types of industries. I'm a one-to-many. So even though I work for a sales consulting agency, I talk to sales teams, and now we're moving into other parts like marketing and other areas. But I talk to sales teams who are now in many, many different types of sub-industries. So of course, it would be very difficult for me to be any sort of expert in every type of different one. As we bring on clients, of course, we try to spin up to that, but it's difficult. And I see something like this as actually the tool that will allow people to have better understandings, to actually bring in empathy. Because if you can empathize with the people you're talking to, whether it's a business use case or a personal one, or the person you're sitting next to in church, if that's where you happen to be, and you have tools like this that allow you to empathize and understand deeply how AI is impacting their life, it connects you. And the more you're able to do that and understand how it's impacting them, good or bad, positive or negatives, actually, I think really is a model that I would like to see is using AI for, which is to understand your fellow humans, understand, and not just what's going on in their life, but crucially in this part, how is AI impacting their life? I might be sitting talking to a plumber who goes, as of now, it doesn't really impact my business. We've used it to help us with some ads. We've used it for some marketing, and I'm glad that I don't have to go to Fiverr anymore. And maybe you have somebody who's helping, or maybe it's the plumber themselves, and they're saying, hey, I can now do this thing and I wasn't able before, and it's helping me market my business. And I've had more business because of it, because the ads just look better because I could do it in Canva or whatever. And I use AI to do that. That's been really helpful. Or I was never really good at writing emails back to customers and keeping track of that. And now I have this AI tool that does it. But we're not at a point where the humanoid robots coming into my house, knocking on my front door and saying, I'm here to fix your plumbing, right? That's still something that we relatively feel like there's a buffer around, and say, yeah, I don't know. I don't know when the robots start fixing your plumbing and looking in your walls with X-ray vision, to assess where the leak is and telling you how they're going to fix it. I don't know. I don't know how far that is, but it informs if I'm able to understand maybe how that person is interacting with AI in their life, very minimally, or perhaps in our lives, very much so. So it gives me hope, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here in a long-winded way of saying this, is it gives me hope to see things like this, because I think for those that want to understand the people around them more, tools like this allow for empathy. And when you have empathy, you can't really be mad or hate against people who are your neighbors, because you have a better understanding of what's going on in their life. And AI is impacting, as you see, all of us. It doesn't matter what you do. At all ages, it will impact all of us continuously. So this, I feel, really, really helps, and it's a positive step in the right direction.
I agree. I did want to take 1 second and do a couple of clarifications for because there's a couple of questions in chat. And Greg asked if Andy said this was aimed at episodes of DAS. I don't think so, but that does spark an excellent idea for the next iteration. I would love to see, okay, our episodes fit under these categories. So thank you for that idea, Greg.
And we're building towards that, right, Jimmy? I mean, that's something that I've been working on for a while, and I've kind of put a pause on it as I've gotten busy. But the Project Bruno, as we talk about on the show sometimes, it will solve for that. It will make it possible to take something like this and cross-reference it against all 500 plus daily AI shows.
Right.
But we're just not there yet.
Another interesting one is just to have the Bruno data base that will be generated, have it analyzed to create a set of clusters. Like what, and compare them side by side. What does the world's collection of information represent as distinct from what we talked about? We may find that if you look just at the data from our shows, we have a bias towards interest in certain areas. And so our clustering is different.
Yeah.
And also, I think this uncovers areas where we could certainly have more shows, right? There's areas just on that mind map, if I was to dig into it, I'm sure we could all go, we've never really talked about this important topic on the show. This is something we should definitely bring up, So I think selfishly, this will generate a lot of show ideas, which is something we all collectively work towards and, try to get done, and stuff that's inspiring to us. And we think it'll make good conversation, obviously, but also we're always looking for new ideas, new paths, new angles on topics. So I think this will be really helpful for that too.
And Jude also had a quick question. This isn't dynamic, right? This would have to just be rerun for any new additional information, things like that.
Yeah, if this were to be built as an application, as opposed to just this is a presentation of a single output, right? It's rendered as a navigable interactive map of what a single output was. But if you were to make an application that was self-updating, that's a little hard. That's a bigger lift, but it's doable, totally doable. And in fact, it's one of the things that I've thought about for Sensei courses, is that I want to build ultimately into Sensei, the platform, the ability not only to generate a brand new course almost automatically, but which is it's a very tedious process right now to to detail each lesson and make sure that it's presented correctly and all of that. But eventually, I'd like to see that done, and also build into it the ability to, at the time that a student enters into the course, go out and update all of the modules that are in the course based on the latest information.
Which is really, really cool. By the way, I think there's a use case here too. Going back to Jude, like, well, how do you apply this? Well, there's a lot of ways. We've talked already about that, but let me just give one example as a parent. And I've sort of mentioned this on the show. So my daughter's about to start freshman year of high school. So lots of changes. We're getting out of middle school. We're growing up, right? We're, more independence and things like that go into life as you try to navigate high school. But one of the things I will absolutely help her and then teach her to do on her own is to grab, so a taxonomy. She'll build a taxonomy of each school class that she'll be taking. Now, her particular school has decided to go and mimic more of a college way of life, which would be to say larger blocks and less times per week. So she'll actually, in high school, she just won't have the same 6 classes every day. She'll have a 2-hour class of whatever, economics on Tuesdays and Thursdays, as you would in college. And then some other day will be something else, because they want to get the students more prepared for that way of life. Great. So either way, what I'll be doing with her as we get the syllabuses in, as we get the information in about what are you supposed to learn in this class from now, day one of the class through the end, that's a taxonomy. That syllabus is essentially informing what a taxonomy would be. Now, with the power of AI, I can help my daughter and go out and fill in that taxonomy even more from that and go, well, you're learning the basics of religion. She's going to a Catholic high school. So you're learning the basics of the Old Testament. It hasn't changed. AI can look at it 100 times. The Old Testament's the Old Testament, so like, go look at that information, and this is where the course starts and this is where the course ends. And it's saying, this is where your markers are going to be. This is where your tests are going to be. Great. Let's build a taxonomy based off of that and expand out on that. Great. Now let's use a tool like Sensei that becomes her tutor. To be clear, not to help her just cheat her way and do nothing. That would be useless to me as her parent. But if she can have this side-by-side tutor that's trained on the exact class that she's in, because it's built on the taxonomy on the syllabus, and it's there and it understands what she needs, well, then she can use a tool like a Sensei and essentially go in and say, well, this is what I'm learning side by side. These are the questions I have. This is where I'm a weak in this area. This is where I'm confused with the naming conventions of the Bible in this area. And this is where I need help. And it will come back and it'll help with Socratic questioning and things like that. So this is just one of many, many, many ways that I think, Andy, you've opened my eyes to the idea of a taxonomy, to the idea of making that the feeder information. Because what AI does brilliantly is it doesn't make us write the entire encyclopedia. It's actually the opposite of that. It allows us to get enough SEO keywords and points of data and metadata in there that AI can pick up the rest and say, I got it from here, and I can fill in everything between A and C without us having to pre-fill everything, which is not only time expensive, but it's also the other side of that is what you said, Andy, which is if I just have a core taxonomy and keywords, then what that says is before the student gets there, we can have AI going out and looking for new updated information. It wouldn't impact how it's trained because it never had the whole corpus in there. It never had everything. It didn't try to write the encyclopedia. It just tried to give enough guidelines that AI could say, I can fill in the blanks from here. And even more importantly, I can fill in the blanks, but do it in a training way that's unique to Jimmy, Andy, Brian, Sophia, my daughter, or anybody that makes sense for us personally. And then once you get that locked in, I think you have the future of education. You understand where education is going in the world of AI. And I don't know how long it'll take to reach every student with equity in education, but this is the future of education. It has to be highly personalized, detailed learning that's constantly updated, that's pulling in the information, and the AI is picking up the rest of the weight and doing it.
So, Andy, as we wrap up for the day, can you give us your primary takeaways from researching the state of the union of AI. So what are like the 5 things that people really should pull from the current status?
Well, I'm not sure I have 5. I, let me, so, and I don't know that it's completely informed by this exercise as much as it is, what this exercise has done is just organized, provided a new level of organization to the specific clusters or knowledge domains in my mind. But the ones that are salient to me and I think are operative right at the moment and should be of concern to everyone are the very large societal impacts that are topics of discussion for us frequently, and that because of the ability of AI, especially the next generations of AI agents, to take over most knowledge work that is currently performed by humans at pretty high levels of compensation. Being a knowledge worker is what I've done all my whole life. And, that's what allowed me to support a family. What is it for the next generations? That's one of the most important questions that's out there, is the economic impacts. And that isn't, strictly speaking, what engineers are thinking about. Right. So the other side of the equation are the people who are incredibly lucky to be involved directly in the development of the more advanced intelligence that are in the labs and behind the scenes, starting to take over something as complex as engineering itself. So is it any surprise, given the enormous economic impact of this, that there are people being offered hundreds of millions of dollars to join one of the leading competitors who are attempting to achieve super intelligence ultimately, and all the economic benefits that will accrue there too. So it's astounding to me. I mean, I came up in a time when, and I was a part of the internet era where millions of dollars were made by people in those companies. But now it's billions of dollars being made by individual people in those companies. There's a potential for making many more billionaires in this small group of people involved at the cutting edge of AI. And I think understanding what world they live in and what kind of, I don't know, intellectual capacities are necessary to actually make progress in that, that's what gets my mind spinning.
Yeah. Okay, so Andy, is there anything else that we need to know about the state of AI?
No, that's, and I'm not going to say that I have a full grasp of it, but we built a tool that'll let you at least, if you have to, exhaustively go click through every one of those things, look at all the lists and say, oh, I hadn't thought about that. That's in there.
Sounds good. I like it.
Jimmy, can I tell you what we have coming up for the rest of the week?
Go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So super cool. By the way, this is an amazing way to start off the week. Holy moly. But tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, we will have guest hosts, Anne Murray, joining us for those 3 days. And we are really excited about it. Anne is phenomenal. She's guest hosted with us before once. She's coming back to help us fill in. As you can see, Beth is out, Carl is out, Aaron's doing his best to get in there. So we thought this was a great time to help us expand our conversation. So Anne will be here the next 3 days. What will we be talking about? Tomorrow, we're talking about dynamic pricing. So think about this, the hotels, the airlines, Uber, you're used to dynamic pricing, but AI is making that really easy now. And so what happens when AI also dynamic prices your McDonald's hamburger, and Andy, Jimmy, and I all are asked to pay 3 different prices for the exact same hamburger? If you think that sounds far-fetched, wait for that conversation tomorrow. Wednesday, obviously, we're going to have Jimmy hosting us on all the AI news. Anne will be here for that as well. And then, like I said, she'll come back with us on Thursday. And on Thursday, we're talking about the AI hiring process, meaning specifically, I should say that different, the hiring process, job interviews, as well as the HR side of doing the hiring, and how AI is basically ruined that right now. That is one of the areas where AI is having an absolute negative impact, and both sides are feeling it, from the I can put out 100 resumes or 100 applications in the next minute to HR having to deal with that deluge of those. And then Friday, we're going to be talking about our best use cases. I mean, Andy kind of just showed one, right? So this might come back up on Friday, but our best use cases of like agent mode, but not just agent mode, what Andy is building with GenSpark and Manus and others. Like, what have we built since this stuff has come out? And like, what do we think are some really good use cases for it? And again, Andy, I think you've kicked us off beautifully this week, because what you just did is a great use case for like an agent. So as we're getting into this mode of actual agent modes, not just with ChatGPT, but the others, what's the good stuff out there? It can't just be going to look at baseball games, right? Tour around the country. It's good. What are the use cases that we find really exciting, either because we built them or because other people built them? So there's the rest of the week. Make sure you come back and join us, support Anne, show her lots of love, but we will see you guys, for the rest of the week for all those topics. Thanks, Jimmy.
Aloha.